I'm guessing you brush twice a day, or aspire to. Our ancestors were a little less diligent, but that's a good thing for scientists because ancient plaque-coated teeth are like time capsules, preserving early evidence of cavities or even plague DNA. Now researchers have turned 1,000-year-old teeth from a convent cemetery outside Frankfurt, Germany, and they cleaned them, much like your dentist does.
We used the same dental tools, and we collected the calculus from the teeth.
That's molecular anthropologist Christina Warner of the University of Oklahoma. Inside that calculus or plaque, she and her colleagues found tiny bits of pork, bread wheat, and cabbage, identified by their DNA, along with the bugs behind strep throat, bacterial meningitis, and an oral strain of gonorrhea. And don't be too quick to judge.
Nearly all of us still have gonorrhea in our mouth.
There are studies in the journal Nature Genetics. Some of those bugs were antibiotic resistant too, because long before penicillin, some microbes produced natural antibiotics to attack rivals.
Your mouth is like a battlefield of bacteria.
So, chew on that.
This is going to surprise anybody who's ever been shaken awake by a quake in Southern California, but geologists say that the Los Angeles basin is actually in a period of low seismic activity and has been for about the last 1,000 years. That's according to research published in the September issue of the journal Geology. The seismic lull is marked by relatively smaller and fewer earthquakes. That's compared with other periods with a lot of rumbling and crumbling. The period of big seismic activity in the LA basin that ended 1,000 years ago lasted about 4,000 years. Long-term data on seismic activity indicate that the calm period lasts about 1,500 to 2,000 years, which gives LA another 500 to 1,000 years off. Now, the researchers are specifically referring to what's called the Urban Fault Network, which is under the LA metropolitan area. It does not include the San Andreas Fault, which can still throw the occasional big one around. About 10 major San Andreas biggies have happened during the current LA basin lull. Nevertheless, if the current lull ends in the next millennium, LA's future could be very shaky.
Fed up with the polar vortex? If so, consider this. Shivering may actually share some of the benefits of exercise, at least in terms of burning fat. Researchers studied shivering in a group of 10 men and women. First, the volunteers rested under a temperature-controlled blanket, which dropped from 80 degrees Fahrenheit to a chilly 54. Then they cycled on an exercise bike. Researchers took blood samples during both activities. Turns out shivering and exercise spurred muscles to secrete similar amounts of irisin, a hormone that tells brown fat to turn up the furnace, even though exercise took 10 times as much effort. The researchers say the metabolic pathway may have evolved to save us energy. Shivering alone is a costly survival mechanism. It relies on muscle contraction to warm us, whereas shivering activated brown fat can convert chemical energy directly to heat. This study's in the journal Cell Metabolism. As for your home thermostat, study author Francesco Celli of the NIH likes to keep his at 68, low enough to turn on brown fat. And it's a win-win. You'll save money on heat because you're making your own. Thanks for the minute. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
They may be our cousins, but orangutans and other primates are nowhere near humans in terms of technological achievement, social organization or culture. As humans, capacity for building off one another, an integral part of our so-called cumulative culture that has allowed us to build up so much in so little time. But how do we develop such advanced methods of learning in the first place? Kevin Leyland of the University of St. Andrews spoke with me about his team's quest to pinpoint the social and cognitive process that underlie humans' ability to acquire and transmit knowledge.
The 1976 Mars Viking landers didn't find any life on the red planet, but maybe they weren't looking right, because at least one researcher thinks that 0.1% of the Martian soil tested by the Vikings could actually have had a biological origin. The Dutch researcher Joop Houtkoper presented his ideas on August 24th at the meeting of the European Planetary Science Congress in Potsdam. One Viking test measured unexplained rises in oxygen and carbon dioxide when it was incubating some soil samples. Houtkoper conjectures that the incredibly dry and cold surface of Mars might be home to living cells. Such cells, however, would need to be filled with a mixture of water and hydrogen peroxide, which could stay liquid in the harsh conditions. And if the Viking landers happen to scoop up any of these strange cells, their breakdown products would be in line with the oxygen and carbon dioxide measured. The biomass would then represent 0.1% of the Martian soil by weight, which is interestingly comparable to levels found in some Antarctic permafrost. Thanks for the minute. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Steve Mirsky.